I'm speaking with Mr. Neb Borkovich. I discovered him 2 years ago in 2018 by pure accident. I was listening all the Strange Days Indeed radio show in my archives by late Errol Bruce Neb, and Neb had an interview there, and I was really I listened, and I became very interested in his case. I discovered that he has a book about his incident back in 2000, and so I think it would be really good to promote this important case again, so people could understand better what happened to him and his colleague. So I invited Neb today for an interview, so I hope we can present the audience the chronology of events that he experienced on Pacific Sea back in 2000. So good day, Neb, to you in Arizona there.
Good afternoon, Giuliano. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to explain and tell people about what happened in Pacific Ocean back in 2000. And I'm so glad that I've established contact with you. We are from same town. I left in 1973, Zadar.
Absolutely. That was, again, another interesting synchronicity. So it was really interesting to connect, and we are from the same region of former Yugoslavia, and this case is now mostly unknown to the world. 20 year passed after your event, after your book, so it will be good to finally present this to the audience. So maybe for the beginning you can introduce yourself, give yourself a short biography, how you immigrated from Yugoslavia to United States, so something about your life.
Yes. My name is Neb, for short, Nebojša Borkovich. Here in the United States they call me Neb, very short. I was born in Belgrade, Serbia, former Yugoslavia. And didn't stay there very long. As a baby, my parents moved me to Prijedor in Bosnia, today's Bosnia-Herzegovina. In 1965, I believe, I moved to Zadar, Croatia, a beautiful town, Zara, old ancient Italian Roman city, Liburnia, Zara. And it was a fantastic childhood there. My father bought a little motorboat, about 8 meter. Actually, for those circumstances, it was pretty good size. And every weekend or whenever we could on vacations, he took me, sometimes alone, sometimes with my little brother or with company. We went motoring. It was a motorboat. We went motoring and visiting beautiful islands nearby. Silba, Dugi Otok, Ij. A lot of people don't even know these names. Kornat National Park, before it was a park. So, once you get introduced to water and little adventures of that kind, and the good food, the fishing, the visiting villages, it is something that stays with you. It was a fantastic childhood. And I finished my elementary school mostly up to almost the end of 8th grade in Zadar, Velimir Škorpik school. And then due to some political situations back then, early 70s, my father decided to immigrate, and he had an opportunity, and he left for the United States in 1972. A year later, I followed with my family. So first town where I lived was in Detroit for 2 years, and I finished my schooling, high school, and college studies in Buffalo, New York, which is after Detroit. 5 years in Buffalo, New York. I finished schooling for commercial arts, and then I came to Phoenix, Arizona in 1981.
That's really nice, and actually,
for a while, yes.
Yeah, and actually we went into the same elementary school, Velimir Škorpik, which is another interesting connection. So this is really a nice synchronicity. And actually it's really nice because living on the Adriatic coast, you develop a really great passion for sea, which is a key element in your story. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that, how you started to sail, and which will be, of course, essential later.
Yes, I read a lot of books in the transition between Buffalo and Phoenix, and sea always captured me. Fantastic solo sailors that went around the world, went to Antarctica, went different places. So I was captivated by it. And every time I would see a sailboat on television or my short visits to California, to Los Angeles, I lived there for several months after schooling also. Uh, it's just something, immediately, it's almost genetic. It wakes you up to that desire to be on the waves, to work with the lines, to open the sails, to inhale that wind. So I had to do it. I knew I had to buy a boat eventually. It is something that had to be done. In my 20s. So in 1989, I moved to San Diego, California, and I bought my first sailboat. It was a Canadian-made 26-foot little sloop. I stayed in the harbor for over a year, and somehow I got an idea. Once I learned the basics of sailing, I'm going to take this out. I need to take this out, maybe Hawaii, maybe across the Pacific. And a lot of older sailors, people who've been there for years, says, don't do it alone. This is something, just go to Mexico, go someplace down the coast, learn about sailing. I said, well, maybe I will, maybe I'll try, So finally, in 1991, I just had to do it. And I went with a friend for a 3-day trip in thinking of doing the trip, actually, to Hawaii. And after 3 days, I returned. I was scared. On the huge ocean. Immediately, within several days, the guy left, So I was left alone, looking for somebody to accompany me. Nobody would. Actually, a guy from San Francisco, a Croatian guy, came just when the war started. And I tried to impress him with the boat. Everything fell apart. I lost wiring, whatever, and he left home. I said, I'll call you back. So, I had no chance of finding anybody. So I undertook that solo trip. It lasted 52 days. It was really something. I lost a rig. Half of my rig I lost half in the middle of a trip. So I more or less made it to Hawaii on towels. Towels and what's left of the sail.
Yeah,
So,
and we are speaking actually
yeah.
about sailboats. You went for sailboat, direct connection with the sea, orientation, but I think you mentioned at one point there was no GPS, right? What we were using for your orientation? Can you speak a little bit about technical aspects on the boat?
Yeah, at that time, GPS was already available, but the unit was the size of a small radio, and it cost $1,500. I mean, only people with some deeper pockets could afford them. They were clunky, gigantic things, and I couldn't afford it. After all the money that I spent on a boat, I couldn't afford something like that. So I just spent on a little sextant, a little plastic sextant. You have to learn how to take a sunshot at noon. But it took a lot of computations. You need to bring a nautical almanac and do all the index mirror deductions and a lot of mathematical work. So you can also travel by radio, radio direction finding. You can use the now from an AM radio and find your station and kind of point towards the towers in the distance, and the station identifies itself. And then you can pick up another station, and where the signals cross, you could be there. But the farther out you go, due to the distance, radio waves reflect off the surface of the ocean, and your circle probability where you could be grows and grows and grows, and then you don't know where you are until you come to the Hawaii, and then you can pick up their stations. So I made a nautical mistake. Navigational mistake of only 1 degree, and I ended up on a big island instead of Maui, which I was shooting for. And I shipwrecked my boat there, and I was rescued by U.S. Marines in a helicopter. And the rest is history. Second boat, I returned back to California. Second boat, I was called Rocinante, a 28-footer. I just kind of lived on it, and it got damaged in one of the storms in California. And I left California again. And then in 1998, I bought my last boat. I named her Mira.
And you named it after your mother, right?
Yes. My first boat was named Royo, after my father. The last one was after Mira, because my father named his boat after me. So it's at least one thing I could do for him.
Yeah, you had to return the favor. So you had your first voyage to Hawaii, and actually you crashed with your boat. So you had some kind of experience. Your spirit is still there. You are now thinking again to sail with a third boat, and you also at some point met your really good friend Donald Begay. So maybe we can now jump to that timeline now.
Yes, I met Donald Begay in 1997 in Phoenix. At that time, he was maybe 32, 33 years old. He's a Native American Navajo from a small town in northeastern Arizona, a reservation called Lukachikai. Very lively little community, beautiful place surrounded by red mesas and mountains, a paradise. So he lived and worked in Phoenix, and we became good friends over time. And I constantly kept talking about my sailing exploits and a desire to buy a next boat, and he was really intrigued. So this is why he, and he's never been to California, never been to Hawaii, never been on a boat, never been on the ocean. So there was something that really intrigued him. And after my first solo experience, I needed some company. I didn't want to do it alone again, because it's such a challenging undertaking, at least for me, So he decided to accompany me after a period of training in San Diego, which we enjoyed. We sailed down to Mexico, down the coast of Baja, California. That was about a 47-day-long trip, stopping off at different anchorages. It was a really life experience. We made it down to harbor of La Paz on the tip of Baja. That was in the fall of 1999.
Yeah, that was really great. I recall in one of your interviews when you were sailing from San Diego through the Baja California towards South Coast, and in the end ending at La Paz. I think you were saying so many remote beaches. You can go with your boat, many different adventures. It was really a nice area there to sail, to have these wonderful experiences, right?
Yes, it was nothing like it. It's like being in Utah or Arizona, some fantastic scenery right on the shores of Mediterranean. Can you imagine having Utah or Mediterranean? The weather is nice. Only thing about Mexico, it could be dangerous in the summer months, fall months, due to the hurricane season.
Ah, okay.
So any mariner, you have to leave before the hurricanes or after. And usually May, April, late May, June is your last chance to leave, because those hurricanes, once they're born, in the area of Acapulco, a little farther south, they can easily travel directly into Pacific and get you midway someplace, right in the middle of your track. So you got to do it quickly. If you're going to leave, you have a good weather window. Afterwards, in the winter time, you have your regular North Pacific storms and a lot of slugging. And the trade winds can be unreliable at certain times of a year. They can shift here and there. You can have a lot of periods of calm. So it takes a lot of planning for such an adventure. And your boat must be ready. You must be ready. It must be well equipped. Any kind of equipment, electronic equipment, becomes helpful and critical too. Amount of food, how to make water, how to get energy. Those are all the things that you must consider.
Yeah, I think
undertaking.
That's really nice. That's why I think it's really good for all the audience to understand the amount of the undertaking that you had to took with you, the level of planning and orientation and everything. So from San Diego, after 47 days, you reached La Paz, and from there, I guess at some point you decided that you go back home by land, right? Was that the chronology?
Yes.
Yeah.
Winter time was coming, Christmas season. Don wanted to go home, so he left. And within about 10 days or so, I secured a boat. I left it in the harbor, and I flew back. There's a direct Aeromexico flight from La Paz, stops in San Carlos, across the sea in Sonora. And then from San Carlos, San Carlos is near Guaymas, San Carlos Airport. It goes straight to Phoenix. At least there was a connection back then. So we stayed there until, I don't recall the time exactly, until February or March or something. We went back together this time. We took a bus from San Diego back to La Paz to the boat. And she was waiting there, ready to go. So where were you guys all this time?
So that's really great. So you went back to La Paz after some resting, and now it's time for the big adventure, right? Your second attempt to sail towards Hawaii. So we can start the story now from there.
Yes. Just before that, we took a small trip to the islands nearby and came back to La Paz back and forth, and finally left the harbor on April 8th. We stopped one night in a nearby anchorage, Playa Balandra, a very, very beautiful place. Spent the night there, and the late morning after breakfast, we continued on a trip on the eastern side of Baja, passing an inhabited island called Cerralvo, Isla Cerralvo. There's nobody there, maybe some fishermen. After that, there's nothing. Might take you 2 to 3 days, depending how fast you're going, to make it back to the harbor of Cabo San Lucas, big tourist mecca over there. So with our small boat, I estimated we should be in Cabo San Lucas within a couple of days, so there was no hurry. The weather was good. And how does this start, this UFO adventure of ours? Very late night, that very night after leaving.
So you left Cabo San Lucas, right? It starts from there.
No, we left La Paz.
Okay. Towards Sabo.
We were going to stop in Cabo San Lucas, but I gave up on that idea after a couple of days.
Okay, good.
Because we were caught in a storm near Cabo San Lucas second day out. It changed from a nice evening breeze into a gale, 40-knot gale. It was piping winds and large waves, and we got battered pretty bad. And I just didn't feel like sitting on the anchor for the next couple of days in Cabo and wasting our supplies. So I just decided let's go straight out to the islands. Let's swallow the bitter pill. No more anchorages.
Okay.
So
nice.
The first sighting was something anomalous. I was steering the boat late at night. Donald was asleep. Weather was very good, partially cloudy, and I was trying to stay awake. After so many hours, you at the helm, you doze off. You wake up. You got to keep the course, especially when you're close to land. And I look up, and I noticed some strange flashes, blinks coming out of this one cloud, almost at the edge of it. Now, there was no rain or a strong wind or anything like that, so I kept looking at it. It would happen off and on, the same location. So I kept thinking that maybe this is an airliner going to Mazatlan or Acapulco, someplace from La Paz airport. But that light never exited the cloud. It just stopped. So I didn't really think much of it. The next morning after breakfast, Don was below. I was steering the boat again. He was washing dishes, I think. And I look up, and high above us, I see this sphere, metallic sphere, just stood there. And it really attracted my attention. I said, Don, you come out here. You got to see this. And he reluctantly stuck his head out, and we looked up. But that time was gone, just blinked out. So my eyes playing with me. What is this? You know, I never thought. I didn't really think much of it. You know, but what is it? I mean, this wasn't a balloon. It wasn't anything that I could explain. It was just there. We kept going down the coast, and the same afternoon, we look up towards the mountain. See that area between La Paz and farther south towards Cabo San Lucas. There's mostly desertscapes, so huge mountains and empty, deserted beaches. Not much there. Occasional house. I see this elongated light. It came in some kind of a jerky motion. It was something pretty sizable, reddish orange. It came behind the mountain, stood there looking at us from a great distance, and it flew away in a very quirky, strange motion back into the mountains. And I said, this is the second time today. What's going on here? What was it? Both of us saw this. So I made a note of it too later on. Like I said, we had that storm. We passed Cabo San Lucas, decided not to anchor there, continued out straight into the Pacific.
Okay.
The first night out. First night out.
Just wanted shortly to interject. No worries. Just wanted shortly to interject. This is really interesting. So the series of events started to happen, and we are all talking here about the night sightings, right? Can you maybe say what was the time, the length of these sightings? Especially, I think this second one, metallic sphere. Can you talk a little bit about that one?
Metallic sphere and the other similar. Later events, they were quite short, lasting several seconds, maybe up to 15 seconds in the beginning. It's something that happened to be in your view, in your vision, and almost like as if it wanted to show itself. It was right there in front of you, but high up, wanted to be seen, and it sure did attract my attention. They would come up quickly. The first night out, we were accosted by a Mexican frigate. They were looking for allegedly some lost boat, and I told them I haven't seen the boat, and they wished us a happy journey, and that was it. Later on, I came into contact with an American freighter ship, Pecos. Talked to the captain on the radio, on the little VHF radio. He gave us the weather information, wished us a good trip, and they left. That was the last ship they saw. No other ships for next over a month. There's not much going on there. Not too many airplanes. First phenomena that I saw, actually, he didn't see his first one. It happened about 2 days out at night, and I was steering the boat. Maybe it was about 11:45 at night. You see, the sleep is a precious commodity. When you go below, you try to get as much sleep because you have to steer. So he was dead to the world while I was steering. And right in my line of sight, I see this green neon type of light that seems to be swooping or falling down from the sky. And it evened out into a straight trajectory, and it started hopping around like a little frog, like a skipping stone, three, four times. And I mean, that's really, you rub your eyes, but what am I seeing here? What is this? And he hit behind some cloud, and it was gone. The next night, it happened again. Same kind of distant little green neon light swooping from the sky, hopping around, and then it would blink. There's very large blinks. It would stop, disappear instantaneously, reappear at other part of the sky, blink, like it's looking for something, making circles. And then both of us seen this display, and this has been any kind of a notion of no UFOs around, a fantasy. It was swept away. This thing circled us. It seemed to be climbing upwards a little bit, very high up above us, and it stopped momentarily. And we were both looking at it. All of a sudden, there was this much larger blink, and this green neon light, it made a 360-degree loop and shot directly into outer space, leaving a yellow trail behind it, like a Doppler effect. I think I heard a pop someplace. By that time, we were both looking at each other. What is this? This is not normal. This is not a satellite. This is not an airplane. This is not something I never dealt with. I don't know. I never seen anything like this. This is beyond my inventory of knowledge.
Yeah, this is definitely rising the attention, and as you mentioned, there are a variety of maneuvers. You just explained some of them that really seem anomalous in that area, especially with all these different type of events that you were seeing, like a series of them through several days. So let's go back to the chronology, and I guess after starting to sail towards inbound journey to Hawaii, I guess at some point you also you were thinking how to document all this, right? To start to put detail entries into your log. And so can you talk a little bit how the whole thing progressed towards Hawaii?
Yes. After this sighting, which happened on May 12th, there was a similar object, but this time it was red with some orange inside, a distant light. They kept swooping again, coming around, circling, and this time it started falling like in a falling leaf motion. Even this trajectory, and it just stood there in the distance. Now this time we were really scared, and I have tried calling it on the radio. Strange, it sounds very strange, but this is what it came to me at that moment. Why didn't I try to call them on the radio? This is obviously an object of some kind. So I got on the channel 16, my little VHF.
Wow!
And told them, this is sailing vessel Mira.
Yeah.
What do you want? Who are you? Please introduce yourself.
So you are trying to communicate. Yeah, you are trying to communicate.
Trying to communicate.
Yeah.
And after this, I said, this must be recorded before I'm going to forget the dates. I'm going to forget the positions. And I took out this old notebook here that I had with me, and decided to keep a log completely separate from the sailing log. When you sail, you put your daily positions, what you ate, how many miles you covered, what's for dinner, how many cigarettes you have left, all these mundane things. But I decided to keep the notes of the sightings that actually passed. So I started making little illustrations. This is one from mountains, from memories.
Yeah.
And I decided to keep the correct GPS positions of the occurrence, the timing, and I've also tried to videotape it. The only piece of photographic equipment I had was an old GPS, RCA camcorder.
Yeah.
One that older type where you actually put the tape in.
Yeah, VHS. Yeah.
And it was very hard to record because you're moving left, up and down the waves, and it was very hard to keep the motion. And also another thing that was difficult, that particular camcorder, you have to close one eye, and the other eye that stays open through the viewfinder, it gets blinded by the internal light from the camera. So you have to take the camera down, put it down, actually look for the object to see what you're filming, try to zero in. It was very difficult to get those recordings done. So afterwards, many people ask, how come this is dancing back and forth? Well, you try doing it. You try to picture something from that between 15-foot waves.
This is really amazing, Neb. I didn't even know that you were taking separate logs with even more detailed points, data, drawings. I always had an impression, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and it's really original, right? Historic notes that you took.
Original colors, yes.
Amazing, yeah.
There's almost a little book, but by the time
absolutely,
the experiences were over with, I mean, there was pages and pages and pages of this stuff.
Absolutely amazing. I think this is important actually, so that people could see the amount of events that what you were experiencing there, taking notes and everything. That's absolutely really amazing. And I just wanted to add for of course people who don't have any experience with radio communications. Why you pick the channel 16, the frequency. I know something from the radio communications myself. The frequency is 156 megahertz and 800 kilohertz.
Yes.
And it's the calling main channel for any kind of incident report, establishing primary communication.
Yeah.
So that's a really good approach.
Yes, it's channel 16. You must keep it open at all time. Actually, it's illegal to be calling unless talking to it very long. You can hail the ship or somebody on shore or Coast Guard or Navy, whoever, and then you decide to jump to a different channel. Channel 16 must be left open all the time for emergency.
Yeah.
For SOS, for a Mayday call, things of that nature.
Yeah.
But when you're far out, as far as my little antenna on the top of the mast, you probably had at the most 30-mile radius. So unless there was a ship nearby, an airplane, nobody could even hear you. You could be calling for help, for days and days. Unless there's a ship nearby, no help. Pacific is enormous.
Exactly.
We are not on Adriatic anymore.
Absolutely not. And so this really started to escalate now, and I'm really interested. What were the feelings? What was the Don's reaction? What you were talking about? Was there any fear there? And you were all alone there?
Of course. First of all, it's a wonderment, and you're trying to prove it to yourself that what you're seeing is not something mundane. It just blows your mind, And then, if they're coming to see you every other night, then it becomes a concern. You're all alone. There's no help. You cannot call police. You can't call 911. You can't run. You can't hide. You're moving at 3 to 4 or 5 knots an hour. They can be in your area very quickly. It is actually a very life transforming experience,
Yeah.
And we were both concerned once in a while, but also being filled with wonder. And many people would ask me, how come you've seen so many UFOs? Usually people see it's a one-time sighting, 2 or 3 times, well, because we're moving. This is a voyage, this is a trip. And if you're going to show yourself to an object of your interest, you must come and visit. So therefore, multiple sightings.
Yeah.
This is a long voyage,
Yeah, I think in the UFO, of course, lore, they are calling like the guys who have a repetition of UFO sightings, sort of like credibility goes down. But again, your title of your book is followed. So the context here is actually that you were followed by the phenomena during the voyage. So this is a special type of experience here. And we have to take into consideration the circumstances, what was happening, the remote area. So something obviously was happening that caused the stimuli for you to follow this, to make logs. So definitely it seems, at least, of course, by my communication also with you and everything that I read and went through, obviously something was definitely happening.
Yeah, I did not know why. I didn't know why. Unless you see it, it could be there, maybe it's not. You don't know what to believe. but this will change your entire belief system. You don't have very much to fall back on. It became a concern. So once we made it to Hawaii, I decided to make a report of this.
Absolutely, yeah.
We came to Hilo.
That's now the really interesting part, now the official interaction. That is actually what I really want to hear. So I think you reached to Big Island, right? And you from there you started to actually try to report what you experienced.
We arrived to Big Island, to Hilo, port of Hilo, the only one there on the eastern side of the large island. This time I didn't get lost. I had a GPS. I knew where I was going. We came to the harbor, cleaned up, and ate something other than canned goods, and rested a little bit. And as far as reports, I came into the phone booth. I got yellow pages, and I couldn't find any kind of a UFO organization on the island, not even in Honolulu. Mm. So I decided maybe the police could have an idea. Maybe there's somebody who was interested in this, a newspaper person, investigator, anybody who would take this report. So feeling kind of a little bit on the ridiculous side, I walk up to the police station, knock on the window, and I said, "Yes, what can we help you with?" I said, "Well, I'd like to report to UFO."
Okay.
So they came out and they listened, and a little snickering. And as I was talking, they said, "Yeah, they've heard about lots of Hawaiian legends, but they never took this kind of a report, and they didn't know anybody." And suggested that maybe you should talk to Coast Guard. And I said, "Yeah, that's a good idea, because they are in charge of all the maritime matters, patrolling the islands, and maybe they have seen something." So there was a good direction to take. So that same day, same afternoon, I walked up at a Coast Guard office, which was right at the same harbor that we were in. It was called the Radio Bay, little closed-off area. Lots of merchant marine activity going on, and the Coast Guard cutter named Kiska, whose captain I had to talk to, was not in harbor. They were out on patrol. And the clerk told me that they will be back within a week or so. So I said, "Yeah, I can wait. You need to talk to Captain Kevin Lopes." I said, "Okay." I took his name down. I took the number, went back to the boat, and kept enjoying the Hilo. Finally on land, smelling the flowers, going to beaches, and eating good, exploring. It was fantastic. Don was very happy too. We were finally there. I got on a bus and I went to across the island. I left him alone on the boat, which he really appreciated. So within a week or so, I have all this chronology. Everything is written down in the notes or in the book itself.
Nice.
There were so many of these times, and this is not the one-time event where you zero in on it. You have to remember all. So they came back. I introduced myself to the captain, and there was another officer with him. I forgot his name. And I showed him everything I had. I showed him my notes. I told him there was something that appeared to be following us. It is extremely unusual. Did you see anything like that before? I said, "No, we don't recall seeing anything like that." And I showed him the videos. Now, of course, he didn't know what to say about the videos. He was interested. We were very serious. No snickering, no funny remarks, and he decided to report this to the main Coast Guard group command in Honolulu. I believe he faxed this message. Fax was a big thing back then, around that time. So he faxed a message, and he gave me the report. It's listed in the book, and I believe you have a copy of it too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Later.
That's really nice, yeah. And it was great that it was in the book.
And that was it,
Yeah. Just wanted to summarize for people. So after your initial reporting to police station, they instructed you to try to report it to the Coast Guard. You met there Captain KJ Lopez, And after he arrived, you explained everything to him, and he even submitted the report. He sent it to the headquarters of the Coast Guard in Honolulu, and we actually located, I think, Neb, you and me, we found Captain Lopez on the contact data on the net. He's still there. Actually, we could try even at some point to contact him, so everything checks out. So that is really, again, another important part of the story that checks out. So after the report, which is also in your book, what is happening now?
Let me tell you about the report. After all the events, after we reported this to MUFON, months later, MUFON called the Coast Guard in Honolulu, and they denied knowing about the report at all. They never received anything, never heard about it, no idea. That's what they told the MUFON. So is this a regular type of a treatment of such reports, or neglect, lack of misinformation, no information? You don't know what's going on, but they flatly denied of them receiving any kind of report. But I have the copy. And, I even videotaped the Kiska cutter in the harbor itself. I believe I sent you some pictures. You can post them. So
absolutely, we'll put them there. Yeah.
The stay in Hawaii was rather short, month and a half. We left Hilo. You only have a certain amount of time you must leave, otherwise they'll start charging a lot. After 30 days you must leave, otherwise it's $8 a day. So we left. We left towards Maui, stayed in Lahaina, a very beautiful place for a while. We went to Honolulu, and I couldn't stay there because the situation has changed, the anchoring situation, and the local authorities, the port commission. It was very kind of a cold atmosphere for new boaters. Most people just resupply in Hawaii and they leave to Australia or Tahiti, whatever they're going.
I see.
Mostly a stop. People who stayed, the boaters who stay in Hawaii, experience quite a bit of difficulties with the local authorities. You must move. It's illegal to anchor here. It's illegal to anchor there. You can't stay here. You can't there. Constant harassment, like in California. So most people leave. Very few actually stay in Hawaii, and there are some local boats. But no, you can also have large storms over there, like up to 80 knots, maybe, and hurricanes as well. Sometimes they get wiped out, like the Hurricane Iniki, I think it was called, that destroyed the island of Kauai a couple of years later. So we went back to Maui, and then after Maui, we sailed by Oahu, and then the last island we visited for about 2 weeks was Kauai, the northernmost island. Yes. And the oldest island in the archipelago. A literal paradise. Waterfalls, birds of paradise. I mean, warm ocean, warm beaches, friendly people, other boaters. It was almost like being. I think only Marquesa Islands are maybe more beautiful than Kauai. Fantastic place.
And that was actually initial goal of your voyage, I guess, to experience other remote locations, exotic locations, to connect with nature, right? I think that's really a beautiful thing with sailing and visiting all these areas.
Yeah, well, in my case, I wanted to go farther out, maybe to New Zealand, other islands, but I also had to work.
Yes.
There's also a financial connection there too.
Absolutely.
Since I couldn't stay, one idea was to stay on a boat like we did in San Diego or Mexico, and look for work and live on a boat like most people do, back and forth. And when you're ready, you can continue with your trip the next year, or leave the boat in storage. Okay. And then fly back to Arizona or California and work there, and fly back to the boat. A lot of flying, Yes. So due to this cold atmosphere with authorities, I decided, I can't afford to go to New Zealand or Australia, these places. I got to find some work now. I mean, very, very soon. So we decided to go back to California towards San Francisco. So, and the second leg of
Don decided to stay by your side as well, which is really a great friend.
Yes, otherwise I would have been in large trouble. Going back to San Francisco from Hawaii is an enormous undertaking. And it's a far more difficult trip than coming to Hawaii from Mexico or California or elsewhere.